Good evening and welcome. And thank you for joining us this evening for the Homeless Persons Representation Project Speaker Series. My name is Kirsten Downs, and I'm the Executive Director of HPRP. And I'm so glad you are here to join us. Tonight, we will be exploring our coalition's efforts to provide expanded statewide access to expungement after the recent decriminalization of adult use and possession of cannabis. HPRP, along with 7 other legal organizations, have come together under a grant provided by the Maryland Legal Services Corporation to create a collaborative plan to ensure coverage of expungement education and services throughout Maryland. During this event, hear from our member organizations, learn about the essential work we do, and most importantly, learn about the services we provide, including Know Your Rights, expungement clinics, and other full service expungement opportunities. We promise to save time for questions at the end of the event. Please feel free to type your questions in the chat, and we will try to get to them all at the end. Please note that this event is being recorded, and hopefully we'll be able to bring this to you at a later date. Before I begin, I want to just introduce our panelists to you. Kaylin Williams, our multimedia project manager from the Homeless Persons Representation Project. Chris Sweeney, workforce development manager for Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Services. Lauren Pruitt, legal director for FreeState Justice. Laura Chafee, legal director at Shore Legal Access. Megan McDermott, chief attorney, Community Lawyering Initiative from Maryland Legal Aid. O.T. Walker, attorney and legal advocate from Community Legal Services of Prince George's County. And Jen Vito, executive director from the Harford County Bar Foundation. And we will get started, but first I want to just kind of give you an overview as to why it's so important that we engage in this effort. It has been well established that the criminal justice system has disproportionately impacted people of color. According to a report by the National Registry of Exonerations, Black people are more likely to be stopped, searched, and arrested and prosecuted in routine drug possession cases. In 2020, the American Civil Liberties Union found Black people to be 3.64 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than their white counterparts. Effort to change the systemic injustice must address the collateral consequences of decades of discriminatory policies, such as economic barriers created by criminal records. So the work that we're here to do, provide expungement and expungement-related services, is one step towards that effort. The ability to provide expanded access to expungement for cannabis possession-related charges is another step towards possible and reaching towards equity. Formerly incarcerated persons are almost 10 times more likely to be homeless, experience unsheltered homelessness, increasing people's interaction with the criminal justice system. And so it's a self-perpetuating cycle. At HPRP, we know that criminal records both cause homelessness and prevent individuals from ending their homelessness. Additionally, access to criminal record expungement can provide those at risk of homelessness access to the critical permanent housing resources and employment opportunities needed to end a person's experience of homelessness. So we are not just concerned with expunging records, but we're concerned with the ability to, one, address long-held discriminatory practices in our systems, to provide an avenue for expanded economic opportunities, as well as to provide opportunities for those that have been denied to access to all different types of resources. And so you're going to hear a little bit about how we're doing that in the context of cannabis expungement. For our first speaker, Kaylin Williams, the multimedia project manager for the Homeless Persons Representation Project. Kaylin, what is your specific role in this grant and commitment to expungement advocacy?
Hi, everybody. My name is Kaylin Williams. As Kirsten mentioned, I am representing Homeless Persons Representation Project, HPRP for short, as the multimedia project manager of this campaign. So here at HPRP, we've taken on the role of the multimedia efforts in this collaborative effort. In an endeavor like this, we know that multimedia serves as a really powerful tool for disseminating information and fostering engagement. A campaign of this size is new to us and new to a lot of the organizations involved. So we partnered with a reputable marketing vendor to help kind of amplify this message across diverse platforms such as radio, TV, print and ads in public spaces such as billboards or transit ads. And each medium kind of offers its own unique advantages in terms of reach and interaction. So the focus here is really to meet folks where they're at. Considerable time and intention was really invested in selecting our potential media platforms to make sure that we're reaching individuals where their trust is like already established, because the goal of these platforms is not only to facilitate information, but also to empower individuals to take action, whether that's seeking legal counsel, encouraging a friend or a family member to visit an expungement clinic, or advocating for policy change themselves. We know that legal matters can be intimidating, they can be complex, and there's understandably not a lot of trust within the system. And so it is our job to really make sure that information is accessible and information is transparent. And if we don't do our jobs as marketers, as advocates, then this becomes a misinformation campaign, which is incredibly dangerous. And so some of the key criteria that we looked for in our marketing vendor's track record was past work with legal services or social justice organizations, their familiarity with cannabis and expungement laws, and their ability to complete this project within the grant's 1-year timeline. And now 1 year is a time frame that may seem ambitious given the breadth of this work required, and it is, but as expungement laws progress and evolve within Maryland, this grant kind of provides us with a platform to lay the foundation and groundwork for future initiatives and sustained efforts with the connections and partnerships that we make along the way. We started this process last July and started working with our marketing team in August. And so with the first half of our campaign journey behind us, we've dedicated extensive time and resources to research, ensuring that, one, we're actually reaching the communities in Maryland that have historically been over-policed, and based on data collected from multiple sources, have the highest number of cannabis possession arrests over time. And while we're committed to serving Maryland statewide all the way throughout, by understanding the geographic distribution and frequency of these arrests, we can more effectively allocate resources and target our media spending where it's needed most. Even though that this research can take time, I think that data-driven decision-making really enables us to measure the effectiveness of our campaign more accurately, and allows us to adjust as we go. Because again, our journey throughout this campaign isn't just towards crafting an impactful campaign or just broadcasting information, but really understanding the nuances of our audience's needs, their preferences, and their awareness levels. And so one thing that we did with our vendor was create a paid survey of over 200 Marylanders, where 46 out of the 200 respondents disclosed having had a cannabis possession charge, with the highest volume of those responses coming from Baltimore City, Prince George's County, Baltimore County, Harford County, and Montgomery County. And 154 out of the 200 indicated knowing someone that has or has had a possession charge, with the highest volume of those responses coming from Baltimore City, Prince George's County, Howard County, Anne Arundel County, and Washington County. One thing that our survey also unveiled was a concerning gap in awareness, with 70% of those directly impacted by cannabis charges being aware of changes to cannabis laws in Maryland, but only 56% of those individuals were aware of their current legal status. So to me, this disparity highlights a really critical need for accessible information and resources for individuals to navigate this process more effectively. The good news is that the majority of individuals did respond positively to the likelihood of reaching out for legal help in the next 30 days, or helping a loved one check in on their eligibility within the next 30 days. And then this survey also yielded a lot of really great insight into messaging preferences, identifying specific phrases and keywords that resonate most with our audience. Both groups were given multiple and identical headlines and messaging preferences, and both groups chose the same options that were most resonating with them. So this intel is really invaluable because it equips us with the tools to craft our messaging and more effectively communicate on our campaign's objectives. And by leveraging these findings, we can help to ensure that our outreach efforts are relevant and resonated with. And then as we move towards the latter half of our campaign, I've been working with our vendor, and just a few hours ago received the wireframe of what our campaign website will look like and feel like, which will kind of serve as a centralized hub, offering resources and tools for individuals seeking expungement assistance or advocates seeking information to get involved. Among its features, the website will host a calendar of expungement clinics across Maryland, and a diverse array of resources tailored to individuals seeking help. So that includes informative blogs, videos, guides designed to kind of demystify the expungement process, and give individuals the time and the tools to take proactive steps towards reclaiming their time and their futures. So with that being said, and being mindful of time, I'm going to pass the digital mic, I guess, to Chris Sweeney of Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Services, who is a wealth of knowledge around expungement and has been a very helpful for me in better understanding the legal landscape here.
Caitlin.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the kind words as well. So I'm really happy to be here. Again, I'm Chris Sweeney. I am one of the staff attorneys at Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service, and I manage our workforce development project. And so I'll give a little bit of context on what exactly that project is, and how that connects me to our cannabis expungement project. So the project I manage, workforce development, is a partnership with a number of job training sites throughout Baltimore City. These sites are all kind of their own independent nonprofits that offer different types of job training and supportive services. A lot of the people enrolled in the sites are formerly incarcerated, sometimes just very recently released, but not exclusively. So many participants are people who have, if they were not incarcerated, may have just lacked strong access to stable employment, education, etc. So we supplement the services that those job trainees are receiving by providing legal consultations that are aimed at removing barriers to employment. And the by far most common concern that we're looking for and that people are identifying for themselves is the barrier of having a criminal record. So MVLS has, along with our partners here over the years, has really become acutely aware of the extremely prevalent negative impact of having a criminal record, and how that leads to unstable employment, housing, and all sorts of other barriers. So the Workforce Development Project sort of became the de facto expungement department within Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service. And so it was a natural fit for us to take on the Cannabis Expungement Project. And when this funding opportunity arose after consulting with our other legal services partners here, the sort of angle or little piece of the puzzle that we decided to take on was primarily to focus on outreach. So we are performing some expungements in-house under this project, actually quite a lot of them, and also trying to work with volunteers and support clinics. But we ended up hiring 5 people, 4 of whom to do outreach, focused pretty much exclusively on distributing educational materials, making presentations, getting out into the community, and really putting a focus on, I guess you could say, demystifying legal knowledge, kind of taking the opportunity to say this is a very timely and newsworthy event that has been going on. There was obviously a lot more press coverage around the legalization of cannabis, as you might have seen, on other sorts of changes in the law. And so we recognize that as a legal services provider, as sort of people who are representing the legal system, this is, we're, in a sense, we are part of this system that has harmed people through the war on drugs, through the over incarceration of people of color, and this system that certainly needs a lot of reform. But one piece that we can do is, through these expungements, we can offer an immediate solution to some of these barriers. So in a very concrete way, removing that barrier through expungement. So we have actually now 2 outreach advocates who are focused on Baltimore City and a little bit on Baltimore County. We have a Southern Maryland, Central to Southern Maryland outreach advocate, and we also have someone who is working on reentry. So we are attending community events, really just trying to establish a really strong network of partners where we can go out and educate people. And when to kind of go back to the idea of demystifying legal knowledge, really just trying to take this opportunity to put this information into the hands of the community, and especially focusing on areas where people have been affected by all of the harmful effects of the war on drugs. So not only that, but also working with community partners like some of the job training sites that I mentioned that I work with through the Workforce Development Project, but really expanding that to, it could be really any sort of group that might have a built-in community or audience, like churches, community centers, even, community colleges. There's really a whole array there. And so our advocates have been making presentations, distributing flyers. We put together some basic outline of what are the new laws, how does this affect you. We did a mailing campaign to reach out to previous clients who had received expungements because there might be new eligibility. And the response has really been quite positive. Pretty much every time one of our outreach folks goes out to an event, they're getting invited to more and more events, getting connected with new partners. And to focus real quickly a little bit more on the reentry piece, we have one of our outreach advocates working directly with incarcerated people, actually going into some facilities, presenting information about expungement, and through that, not just that small portion of the work, but really everything else that's going on. We're also getting some knowledge about, what are the needs of these communities, what are some of the pieces that we weren't maybe thinking about initially, such as how does cannabis legalization affect people who are like on parole and probation? There's some pending legislation. We might get into discussing that later tonight. Um, we also have a paralegal on our team as well, who is supporting this whole effort by actually performing the legal analysis and drafting paperwork, filing, communicating with clients. So we're going out into the community, gathering applications, and trying to do expungements for as many people in-house as we can, but we're also supporting our other partners who are present here as well, by attending some of the larger scale clinics and doing some other educational outreach, and really just trying to support our colleagues here as best as we can. So I guess I'll wrap up my little piece here, and I think I'm passing it over to FreeState, or Kirsten. You can feel free to correct me there or introduce them if you'd like.
Thanks, Chris. Yes, Lauren from Free State, can you tell us a little bit about your work and your efforts in this expungement campaign, as well as maybe highlight some of the legal barriers and unique challenges facing the communities you serve?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Lauren Pruitt, and I'm the legal director for FreeState Justice. For those of you who may not have heard of Free State, we are a statewide nonprofit organization that provides free legal services to the LGBTQ plus community in Maryland. We also provide training and policy advocacy that benefits the community at large. Recently, we advocated for the changes to Maryland's law relating to cannabis decriminalization and reducing the expungement waiting periods. I myself testified on both, and was, elated that they passed last session. We do understand that more work needs to be done, and will always be an avid supporter of these efforts. As Kirsten stated, persons of color have a higher rate of contact with the criminal justice system, and we also find that members of the LGBTQ plus community also have an increased rate of contact. And so therefore, our commitment to expungement advocacy stems from seeing this need within the community that we serve here at Free State. Through the additional funds to participate in this campaign, we can actually provide expungement services to anyone in need, regardless of their status as a member of the LGBTQ plus community. And so we just feel like this is really important, kind of life-changing work that can be done, for each individual. And so we're happy to be a part of these efforts. As far as our outreach efforts, we try to contact folks in various formats. We have our marketing coordinator who utilizes our social media in order to ensure that folks are getting part of the process is just educating folks on the changes in law and then letting them know what the process is going forward as far as utilizing those changes. We have partnered with local libraries, other nonprofit organizations, and local support groups to provide expungement clinics. We will be scheduling more clinics during Pride season to coincide with local Pride events. This allows us to reach many folks who are already looking for targeted ads, to let them know about things that are going on. And this starts kind of late May throughout June and then part of July. We've also contacted local marijuana dispensaries to ensure that they're informing customers of their new laws, and letting them know where they can get expungement assistance, not just from us, but just from the various nonprofits that are part of this campaign. Some of the legal barriers, I would say, in the LGBTQ plus community, many of our clients have either names of common use or have changed their names. So we find that they may have been arrested or have criminal records under different names. And so that becomes a challenge when you're looking at expungement, because you have to analyze a person's entire criminal record. And so if you have a person that has common names or various aliases, that they may have been arrested under, we may have to offer, the person go for fingerprinting in order to ensure that we know what their entire case record looks like. Sometimes it is difficult to convince people that there is such thing as good fingerprinting, and that it won't expose them to additional culpability, but that's something that, that we work on. And also there is a fee, which, can be difficult for some folks, as far as, getting that fingerprinting done, but we find that it is necessary in a significant number of cases. Um, like I said, based on either utilizing multiple names or common names that the person may have been arrested under. Some of the other challenges that we found, various courts and other folks on the panel will know, they use different shorthand, abbreviations. So sometimes folks are not quite sure what they were charged with, or what the final result was. They just know that, I pled guilty to something. And sometimes it's difficult to ascertain just based on looking at Maryland case search in the way that some of the shorthand that's used. Another crucial issue that we've seen is how some of the district courts treat cases that are moved to circuit court. They don't always, there may be much more serious charges at the district court level. And when it gets to circuit court, the person may plead guilty to, some lesser charges, but the district court doesn't change their charges. So, we have seen that where folks are, getting turned down for jobs based on charges that they actually weren't found guilty of because of the way the district courts in their jurisdiction work. Some courts are very good at just saying case transferred to circuit court, and it allows that person to go look then at the circuit court case and see what happened. But others, it's not as clear. But the work that we've done through this campaign, we really feel has assisted some folks in getting things off their record. Sometimes it's things they didn't even know was there. A lot of times when folks are they may be going through a part of their life where it's a little hectic, and they're just unaware of certain things that were on their records. And so we're able to kind of go over and lay out, what cases we're seeing, which ones are, available for expungement, and just kind of, walking them through that process. And I think that part of it is really helpful. Allows people to get housing, get jobs, or utilize other benefits, whether it's like Second Amendment rights, or other things relating to school. So we're really happy to be able to provide, these services. As far as like specific trainings, for any attorneys that may be watching, I definitely recommend the training done by the Pro Bono Resource Center. I know if you sign up through them, you are required to take on cases, but they assist you in that part of the process. We get emails all the time for people who have taken the training, and then we add them to our list to send them availabilities, whether coming to our clinics or just taking cases that we send over. And it's a really easy way to satisfy those requirements, but the training is very comprehensive, and I definitely recommend that even for a refresher if you've done expungement work in the past and maybe not familiar with some of the changes that have happened recently. And then we actually have a clinic coming up on February 28th. It's in our offices, but it'll also be virtual. So if there are folks that are looking to do some pro bono work, or if there are any individuals out there who would like to attend a clinic for expungement services, you can go to our website or find us on social media, and I can put the link in the chat. But it's really easy to just submit an intake form, and we'll contact you right away and get you either a slot virtually or let you know where to come for our clinic. So I just want to, again, say thank you for, I'm glad that we're doing this, and FreeState is really happy to be a part of this process and this campaign. There are a lot of expungement bills that are coming up this session, and so we look forward to hopefully having, additional, good news about expungement process in Maryland, reducing expungement times, also automatic pathways to expungement. FreeState has a policy tracker on our website that may be helpful for folks to follow the bills that are important to them. And and if anyone's interested, in testifying at those, some of the best testimonies that I've seen on these expungement bills are for folks with lived experience, where they're talking about how I got a 3-year sentence, 1 year, probation, and then I had to wait 7 years to get it expunged, or 15 years to get it expunged. So that's really powerful to let, the legislators know what folks are actually facing. And I will now pass it to Laura Chafee from Shore Legal Services to talk about the great work they're doing there.
Thank you, Lauren. Good evening, everyone. I'm Laura Chafee. I'm the legal director of Shore Legal Access, formerly known as Midshore Pro Bono. We are a civil legal service provider located on Maryland's Eastern Shore, and we help folks with limited financial means obtain legal advice and representation in certain legal issues involving family law, life planning, consumer debt, housing, and of course, criminal record expungement. We deliver these services through our small legal team as well as volunteer attorneys. We have actually been providing criminal record expungement services for many years. We welcome the opportunity to collaborate with all of our partners across Maryland through this cannabis expungement grant to increase the awareness of the expanded opportunities to obtain an expungement due to the changes in the law, as well as to expand access to legal services. As part of this initiative, we are hosting monthly expungement clinics. We are providing services in 8 counties on the Eastern Shore. And in addition to that, we are sponsoring a local community awareness campaign. And we will also be coordinating a statewide outreach mailing. This funding has enabled us to host 19 clinics and serve 281 clients since April of 2023. The impact of obtaining a criminal record expungement for our particular clients is huge. Clients with clean records can obtain better jobs and make more money. This is the top reason why folks come to us for expungement. Another reason is for more housing opportunities. Those with a clean record have better housing opportunities. This is essential, particularly with the lack of affordable housing in the state. We see this firsthand when we're working with tenants in our landlord-tenant program who have limited housing options due to having a record. Even educational opportunities are more available for those with clean records. We often see clients attempting to get into certain trade programs, such as a nursing program or trying to become a CDL driver. They're coming to us because they're not allowed in those particular programs if they have a record. So increased access to employment, housing, and education are the benefits of criminal record expungement for our clients. To talk a little bit about our outreach efforts. So we've targeted specific groups as well as the general public. Back in April, we did a expungement presentation. We talked about the process of expungement as well as our services to a group called Getting Ahead. This group consists of those who are homeless or recently released from incarceration. The group also is comprised of just folks interested in increasing their economic stability in life. We also held a Know Your Rights presentation at the local library. We partnered with the Office of the Public Defender in our district. That was held in November. This presentation focused on the details of the REDEEM Act, which is the new expungement law that expanded the expungement opportunities. And we also talked about the new laws pertaining to the use of cannabis. We also did a expungement information session at the Lower Shore Workforce Alliance. This is the American Job Center in Salisbury. So we taught their staff about the recent changes in the expungement law and how the process works. so that they can better inform their clients on the topic. We've also had news channels run stories. So WNDT ran a story on our expungement services back in January. They also broadcasted a story on one of our expungement contract attorneys, to which she briefly talked about her expungement work with us. Further outreach coming up would include a presentation to an addiction treatment program at the Whitsitt Center in Chestertown. And we have additional news stories through local newspapers and radio stations coming up as well. We are also involved in legislative advocacy this session. We joined the Maryland Clean Slate Coalition to help advocate for this bill. It's Senate Bill 602, also known as the Clean Slate Act of 2024. This would basically automate the expungement process for certain eligible charges, and we'll be providing testimony on that bill actually tomorrow. We've also provided some written testimony on another bill, Senate Bill 454, which would remove essentially the requirement of completing probation successfully as a condition to obtain an expungement in that particular case. We have plenty of more clinics coming up. So if you're interested in knowing those dates, you can certainly go to our website or give us a call. We do have a calendar which will show you the dates of those. If there's any volunteer attorneys on the call, we do offer mentorship, training, malpractice insurance for cases you take with us. And we can always use the help on expungement cases, of course. And I think that's it.
Thanks, Laura. I'm going to pass it on to Megan McDermott from Maryland Legal Aid.
Hey everyone, thanks Kirsten. Thanks for having me on. So I'm a chief attorney at Maryland Legal Aid. I supervise our community lawyering project, and there's 15 of us on the staff. That's a mix of attorneys, paralegals, and administrative staff. And we are primarily doing expungements. So I would say probably 80% of our caseload is expungement. So quite a lot of people dedicated to it. And yet you can see all of these folks on here are also doing expungements. And I think we all also know that a lot of people are filing pro se by themselves on their own. And lots of people just aren't filing at all, maybe because they're confused or they're intimidated or they don't even know expungement exists, which is why it's so great that we're all making these efforts to get information out there in so many different ways. So hopefully we can start sort of digging away at that and have more people who are realizing that they're eligible for expungement. So we do clinics. We were doing them before the cannabis grant, just like many of my colleagues here. And most of our clinics are actually not specific to expungement. We do right now probably 4 to 6 clinics a week. We are statewide. Legal Aid itself is a statewide organization. My unit is statewide, but we're kind of based in the Baltimore City metro area. We do legal clinics every Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesday at the Pratt Library in Baltimore City, and then Wednesdays at the Baltimore County Public Library. And those are general clinics. People can come in and talk to us about sort of any of the areas where legal aid practices, but we pretty much always have at least one person coming in for expungement. And we have folks in other offices at Legal Aid doing expungements as well, and they all, to say that all of our jurisdictions, people coming in for expungements. There's no one type of person who needs expungement, right? It's lots of people all over Maryland who need expungements. I would say though that for our cannabis grant in particular, we have been doing sort of these jumbo clinics. So we've done 2 of them so far. Both were in Baltimore City. The first one was in November, and that was at the Johns Hopkins Medical Campus. we've done this one for a couple of years in a row, and we always have about 200 people show up. And that's what happened this time as well. So people were able to come in for expungements. I think MLSC was there. I think it was Chris. So we had MLSC there as well as one of our partners. We also had Out for Justice there, and Out for Justice and we were in sort of an auditorium space. And so while folks were waiting, we kind of just talked about expungements, kind of getting that education out there. And I think it was great for me to be there as a lawyer, and then for a person from Out for Justice to be there as somebody who had lived experience. So we could share from both of our perspectives. I learned some things as well. I don't have lived experience, so it's important for me, and I think for all advocates, to work with folks and volunteer with folks and involve folks who do have that experience, whether it's lived experience because of acts or touch points with the criminal justice system, or just being from communities that are more impacted by the police and criminal justice system. Then we had our second sort of jumbo clinic in February at the Convention Center in downtown Baltimore. That was the Be More Healthy Expo. So we had our expungement clinic set up kind of in conjunction again with Hopkins. But there were lots of other providers there who were able to give lots of wraparound services. We had about 235 people come for expungements that day. And even though the clinic was in Baltimore, they were from all over the state. And for both of these clinics, we've really done a lot of outreach. We always do flyers. It's wild how like paper flyers and flyers on social media are still really impactful for people. We also have engaged with the actual media. We've had people go on the news and on radio spots to get the word out. That's like another area where I've been surprised when I've done expungement outreach, that the radio is still really powerful for a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are older, who are 65 and older, who have criminal records. And I think a lot of those folks are especially still engaged in listening to the radio. So it's important technology is important, but it's also important to think about kind of maybe the more old school methods. And then speaking of new school methods, our communications folks sort of rolled out the first phase of we're calling our cannabis campaign at Legal Aid. This is not really my area of expertise, so I may say a few words wrong, so forgive me. But they've been using contextual targeting based on keywords to really reach out to people who are more likely to have had prior cannabis-related charges. And based on this clinic that we had in February, it was really successful. Here come the words I don't understand. So there were 536,000 impressions that were served, and they delivered 658 clicks, which apparently exceeds the industry average. So that was very successful, and we plan to use that going forward as well for cannabis clinics, but also for our other work as well. Like everyone else, we've been incorporating QR codes into our flyers, so people, if they see something at a big clinic, like I don't have time to wait in line, they can scan with their phone and figure out where our other clinics are as well. And then speaking of the large clinics, we have another one coming up on April 27th, which I believe is in partnership with Community Legal Services of Prince George's, who's on here. That's with Reed Temple. That's going to be a big clinic. They do that one every year. I think some of other folks besides CLS may be involved in that one as well. So we'll have information about that up online as well. And then I'll talk a little bit about trainings before I swing it over to my next colleague here. We have been doing quite a few trainings. We've already done sort of Know Your Rights presentations, similar to Chris from MLSC. We do a lot of workforce work where sort of the Know Your Rights presentations are built into their programming, which is really, really cool. So we'll do those presentations, and then people will kind of have more information about what we do, and then they can sign up to talk to one of our attorneys. So we've used that model a lot to do our presentations for legal service providers and also for community members. One place that we've tapped into in this year through this grant is trainings with BSS through the state of Maryland. they reached out to me. I can't even remember. I think I was doing one of these actually, something like this. And they, oh, I saw you. And they emailed me. And so we did a sort of small remote one in the fall for 25 or 30 people. And then it was really popular. So in January, we had another remote training for about 110 people. And we're doing that again in June. So these are statewide. These folks are caseworkers and social workers. So they're not going to court with people, but they are great mouthpieces for what expungements are and what they do. They can connect their folks with legal service providers like us. And they can also just provide education like, oh, you know, actually you still have an active criminal case. So I heard in this webinar that you're not going to be eligible for expungement. It saves everybody time, right? And then we're also doing one of those in person in Wacomico County next month for their local DSS there for 25 or 30 social workers. So that's sort of a partnership that we didn't foresee coming this time a year ago, but it's kind of grown organically and has been really, really positive. So yeah, I think those are pretty much all of my updates. And I think I am turning it over to Community Legal Services of Prince George's County, but Kirsten, feel free to jump in if that's not right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Hi,
you so
everyone.
much.
Can everyone hear me? Oh, okay. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, OT. I was going to pass it right on to you.
Uh-oh. Okay, I'll be very quick because I know we're running up on time. My name is OT Walker. I am the expungement staff attorney at CLS. Very quickly, my role pretty much has a couple of different components. I help clients with expungement education, eligibility, and I help them with their petitions. We also provide a bit of an education resource, which is basically everything that Chris Sweeney taught me. I teach other people. Other organizations that are in the anti-recidivism movement, we work with them on how they can talk to their particular clients. Also, we have external events, but what I'm mostly proud of is we have a virtual clinic. I found that more women prefer to handle expungement issues privately. So they like to call in and have an intimate moment with their past criminal transgressions. And we've seen an uptick. When we have our external clinics, we have a lot of men coming. We had a standing clinic with the library, which we funneled into our virtual clinic. And I think it allows people who are not able to get to us in person due to not having transportation or just being differently abled, it allows them to be able to call and talk to us. Issues that we've been having are the unit rule, and I'm sure if we're going to have time, we can talk about the legislation that Delegate Williams is going to be bringing up on March 5th, hoping to get rid of the unit rule or at least alter it in some kind of way. That's been a huge issue. We also have seen people back in the 90s with handgun possessions, and some of them, surprisingly, that's all they have on their records, and there's nothing we can do about it. We've had a lot of those. So I've talked to Delegate Williams, about that. And that's also something that we hope we can talk about in the future. And so I'm going to pass it just because I know we're getting there on time. But we have a couple of events coming up in March. I put the events in the chat. There's a QR code there if anybody needs to talk to me, have a meeting with me. Also, if you want to schedule an appointment with anyone else, that's also there as well. So that's all.
Thank you. And then Jen, can you tell
Good
us a little
evening,
bit about
everybody.
what your organization is doing?
Hi there, I'm Jennifer Vito. I'm the Executive Director of the Harford County Bar Foundation. HCBF's commitment to expungement advocacy goes beyond just legal obligations. It's a moral imperative, and we aspire to offer a second chance to individuals burdened by criminal record and foster a society that champions redemption and equal opportunities for all. As my role as executive director, I play a pivotal part in implementing the expungement program here in Harford and Cecil counties. Beyond overseeing the administrative aspects, my commitment extends to fostering a culture of empathy within our organization. And this commitment is grounded not only in legal obligations, but in recognizing the profound impact that a criminal record can have on an individual's future. And it's about cultivating an environment where a person, regardless of their past mistakes, is afforded the opportunity for rehabilitation and a fresh start. In terms of our outreach efforts, our multifaceted outreach initiatives utilize social media, like our partners have talked about, and collaborative partnerships with local agencies to disseminate information about our expungement clinics. While social media serves as an effective tool for reaching a broad audience, our collaborative partnerships we have found involve ongoing conversations like with community leaders, social workers, and other organizations. Identifying eligible participants remains a challenge, and I know we have all spoken about that, prompting us to explore innovative outreach strategies such as community workshops and mobile clinics. And through these efforts, we aim to ensure that the information about expungement services permeates various layers of our community, leaving no stone unturned in our pursuit of inclusivity. In terms of the legal barriers and unique challenges that we have faced, the identification of eligible participants remains a pressing challenge in our expungement advocacy efforts. It's hard to find individuals who are interested in having their record expunged, believe it or not. The intricate legal landscape surrounding eligibility criteria poses a barrier, and we're proactively working to simplify and clarify this. This involves establishing accessible channels for individuals to seek preliminary guidance on eligibility, potentially utilizing community liaisons and legal partners. By doing so, we aim to equalize access to information and ensure that those who are most in need are not excluded from the benefits of expungement. A persistent challenge for individuals seeking expungement is a lack of clarity, which I spoke about. And our other partners also have talked about demystifying the process and ensuring a transparent understanding of their rights. We have pamphlets that we have been utilizing, online resources as well. Our website is also a good resource for individuals in our county that we serve to be able to understand the process. In terms of our success stories, we do have some of those, which we're really proud about. In the face of challenges, we have witnessed heartening success stories. Clients who've undergone expungement process and have removed some legal barriers, and they're able to have jobs and get housing and really break the cycle of the disadvantage and empower them to contribute positively to society. Training, we rely on our partners like MVLS and Pro Bono Resource Center to help with the training. We are a very small organization, but we are mighty, and we rely on our partners to help with the training aspect. Upcoming clinics and workshops, we have various ones coming up scheduled soon. That includes in March 6th, we have one at St. Margaret's Church. We've reached out to all different kind of partners. In April, we have one at the Epicenter in Edgewood and during Project Connect. And May 6th, we'll be at the Addiction Recovery Services in Aberdeen. These clinics serve as vital opportunities for individuals to receive legal support they need and to navigate the expungement process. And finally, I just want to say that Harford County Bar Foundation is committed to expungement advocacy together with our partners that have spoken tonight. You know, we want to amplify our efforts to dismantle the barriers. We want to uplift our community members, and we want to work collectively towards building a society where everyone has the opportunity for redemption and a brighter future. So thank you for letting me speak for a few minutes tonight.
Thank you so much. We have some time left, so if anybody wanted to kind of elaborate, I know we have talked about a little bit about upcoming advocacy related to expungement. If there's some issues that we want to make sure people know are coming related to what we've already accomplished with expungement, but how this issue may need to go a little bit further. Does anybody want to?
I can jump in.
Sure. Thanks, Megan.
Sure, yeah. So I think one of the things I wrote down to kind of talk about that was a challenge and then didn't say was that the statute itself, and I think some people touched on this, is very confusing. So people who aren't familiar, I think a lot of people on this call are, but just in case, especially around convictions, the statute has this list of eligible misdemeanors mostly, and a few felonies that are eligible for expungement. A lot of other models in other states don't sort of have this piecemeal list. Instead, they'll have something like, class 1 misdemeanors can all come off. And I think that leads to a lot of confusion. And it does seem like the legislature meant for this expungement process to be accessible to people who are representing themselves. That's why there's court forums and petitions available on the website. But because of this sort of list, and because laws and regulations change over years, so something that was maybe adjudicated as a battery in 1985, is it a first-degree assault or a second-degree assault now in 2024? And the court and the state's attorney might not agree with your interpretation, and you have to go to court. That's really scary and re-traumatizing for a lot of people. So they might just not go. So again, that's why this education that everyone is doing is so important. But I think there's a lot of advocacy to be made about how we can, I know we're not lawmakers on this call, but how can we change things and adjust things so the statute's really doing what it's intended to do, which is, I think, to help sort of the average person advocate for themselves and ask for an expungement. So that's just sort of one of the areas that I think there's not a lot of advocacy in, because I think that these bills don't get sort of produced. And I think asking to overhaul something completely is super intimidating. But maybe the more we talk about it and talk about how difficult, I think it's hard as an attorney a lot of times to figure this stuff out. So I know that people who maybe don't have an education or don't have time are really struggling too. So that's just sort of something I wanted to mention.
Thanks, Megan. Any other advocacy issues that anybody wants to bring up? I think one of the things that has come out is just how many people we are collectively impacting, whether it is with our outreach, media, or really just doing the work of the expungements. And so by the end, we'll have a narrative that may lend itself to maybe the advocacy that we need to see in terms of what has really been successful and where things may need adjustments in order to reach all the intended audiences. OT, you mentioned that you are doing virtual clinics. You indicated that you have seen that women prefer clinics with a little bit more privacy. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like?
Okay, so we rely a lot on technology. Calendly is how the app.
Yeah.
It allows clients to set their own schedule, and we have extended hours on Tuesday so that people, they're moving around throughout the day. They can call or set an appointment, and I call them between 6 and 8 p.m. And we go over the whole process. If they are eligible, I complete the petition and I email it to them. And so it just provides a little bit more of a, not everybody is there. I found that when we were at churches, which we were going, like someone mentioned, we're going to Reed Temple. We've been to Shiloh Baptist Church. We've been to First Baptist Church Glenarden, which is a mega church. That is wonderful. That's a great source of, information for the community at large. However, when the pastor is on the scene, not everybody wants to put their name down to go talk to the expungement attorneys about, the life they had in the 90s. Mm-hmm. So I found that more women feel more comfortable talking on the phone. I don't have a big scary voice, as much as I try. So it's more of an intimate situation, and they are the ones that really, really like the virtual clinic. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
That's great. I think it's really important, our coalition or organization have different communities, and being able to adjust to the most useful way to reach those communities. Does anybody else have a story about how they have kind of done specialized formatting or outreach in order to reach the communities that they serve. I know some of us are in more rural areas, where others of us are in Baltimore and more urban.
I can talk a little bit about that since I serve the rural areas of Maryland here on the Eastern Shore. So we host clinics so people can come in person to the clinics, and we tried to host 2 clinics per month, and we try to go to a different location each time. We are using our local libraries to host these clinics, and so I mean, we're all over the Eastern Shore. So if you're not having a clinic close to you this month, wait another month and you might be closer to you. But also for folks who can't get to the clinics, we offer to mail them the petitions or email. They can stop by our office. They can email the petitions back once they've signed them or mail them back. We're pretty open about how we go about getting those petitions to the clients and them getting back to us. And it seemed to work pretty well for us. So we just give them an option, in person, mail, email, and just do whatever they prefer.
Thanks, Laura. Anybody else have some particularly tailored efforts?
I guess I could add that I think we found that it's important that folks don't decide on their own whether or not they are eligible for expungement services. Just reach out to, whatever organization you're comfortable with to work with, or to the courts themselves. Because, we'll see folks that just for some reason think they're not eligible at all, and you're like, you absolutely are. And so they've waited longer than they had to seek that service because they just assumed that they would not qualify. So we try to meet people where they are, have in person, have virtual. We also know that some of, like, for example, our clinic that's coming up on Thursday is with Johns Hopkins, and instead of them trying to limit the reach of their emails that go out to various participants to just folks in Maryland, we've said just send it out to everyone. If folks reach out to us who are outside of Maryland, we will just point them to organizations in their states, the pro-safe forums in their states, and hopefully they'll get the assistance they need. But it just makes it so that we're not limiting who gets that information, trying to confine it to just folks who may have cases in Maryland. So we're definitely trying to get the word out and spread the word, and it's great to hear that it seems like everyone is doing their part, and so hopefully people will be more and more informed, and can better utilize the expungement process. But the easier that they make it, the easier that it gets, I think the more folks will utilize it. I think people get discouraged when it seems too complex, or they can't get like a simple answer like yes or no. It's available. So that's kind of the legislative side, and I think we're all working towards that part of it.
Thank you. I know in the survey that Kaylin mentioned, there seemed to be a gap between knowing about expungements and knowing about individuals' eligibility. I think several of you have mentioned that. Is there a particular outreach that you're doing, as Lauren said, just to encourage people, hey, just come and find out whether you're eligible or not? No.
I think we take the opportunity here in Harford and Cecil counties that if we have other clinics, whether it's our Determine Your Destiny clinic or whatever kind of brief information clinics that we have, we are sure to bring the cannabis expungements up when we have those clinics just to make sure that everyone is available. We've also partnered with the Office of the Public Defender here in Harford County, and as well as the bar. I have spoken at the bar, letting them know that we have this program, and we've encouraged attorneys in our area that if they have a client or someone that they cross paths with that might benefit from one of these services, to please put them in touch with us, and we are happy to take it. We don't have to have an expungement clinic scheduled for them to take advantage of these services. We are offering them pretty much every day of the week. If someone comes in our office or calls and is in need of it, we make sure we take care of them and attend to their needs.
Thank you. One of the questions from the attendees, oh, I'm sorry, OT, were you going to respond? Okay. One of the questions from the attendees is, has anyone heard from court clerks or judges or other legal professionals about increased numbers? And has there been any issues that seem to have gone unaddressed as we seem to do more and more outreach? Any complaints? Or go ahead, Chris.
I don't personally know anything about the numbers specifically. It's something I've been curious about knowing as well, because it would seem like you'd think there would be increased expungement filing, and I imagine there probably has been. But in terms of other issues to address kind of related to that, I know that there was a little bit of there wasn't basically an exception to the unit rule that went in as part of this legislative package that allows cannabis convictions to kind of subvert the unit rule. And this is a brand new thing for the judiciary to have to figure out. A lot of the attempts to repeal the unit rule have been met with this sort of opposition that it just, in a lot of technical ways, it doesn't make sense to actually, extract a charge out of a file and, redact it, etc. And there's digital versions of the record, there's physical. I know that the courts actually are tackling, I don't know the specific kind of technological steps that they're taking, but we did have someone from the judiciary meet with us, a lot of the people who are panelists here, and I know that they are tackling that as an issue. I saw a little bit of confusion at first from clerks, kind of wondering, how do we process, just from a very basic standpoint, how do we process an expungement where some of the charges are not eligible, but you have a cannabis conviction mixed up in there that is now eligible. I really haven't seen concretely what that looks like on the end in terms of what does the case record look like in a literal sense, but they are being processed, and the courts have assured us that, they're preparing for that to be a normal part of the overall picture of expungement going forward.
Has there been any surprising challenges as we have undertaken this so far, and solutions maybe that we hadn't thought about when this initiative started? I know most of us have been engaged in expungement work for quite some time, but I just asking if there's anything in which this particular initiative with relation to cannabis has brought up anything unexpected.
I can jump in again. I think one of our challenges has been the training piece for folks who are living in the community. We've just, I think, had to have a bigger reckoning to realize we have a lot of partners, but a lot of our partners are kind of the go-between people, like the library. So like the community's going to the library and we're going to the library and we are meeting them there, but maybe we're not as on the ground as we thought we were. So that's been an important lesson for us. And then I think, you know, it's hard with any grant that you have these ideas and you write them down and, you know, you get funding. And sometimes they don't work. And I think most of the things that we've done so far have been very successful. Everyone's been sharing that, but there's definitely been challenges. And for us, it doesn't sound like it is for all of you, but maybe some of you can relate. The community advocate training has been hard. We're lawyers, most of us, and we're used to training other lawyers, maybe not used to training people. We're not educated in education, right? And just also, I think we kind of assumed more people from the community would want an expungement training. And our experience so far is when they don't really want the training, they really want us to come and do clinics and do the expungements. Whereas I think the community partners have surprised us. I mentioned the DSS training. A lot of community partners who are non-legal service providers have really wanted to learn more about expungements. So, you know, it's not all negative. I think we've been able to learn that we need to be a little bit more engaged directly in the community. And also we've learned that we do have these sort of providers who are doing a lot of the connecting work, the holistic wraparound work that we're not able to do sometimes as lawyers, who really would like to be educated more, probably not just on expungements, but probably on a lot of the other areas where we practice as well. So yeah, those have kind of been our challenges.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, does anybody have any last comments, information they want to share? Are there any online platforms or digital tools that can help folks track the statuses of status of their cases?
It's a really good question. And you'd think that there would be some better something in existence that would allow you to do that, but I would say there's generally not really. I mean, assuming the question means if someone has filed an expungement and then you're kind of waiting for the court to process everything, which can take months, could take a really long time for everything to be finished. The closest thing we have is Maryland Case Search and basically the equivalent case search system that's attached to our electronic filing system. And that would apply to any county besides Baltimore City. That case search system has some information that basically would say, like, an expungement has been accepted. And then if there is something that's going to be a problem, like the state's attorney is objecting to it, that would usually be noted in there. For Baltimore City, there's unfortunately usually less detail in the regular case search system that's going to kind of give you an idea of where the case is. But yeah, I mean, if an expungement order gets granted, you might see that show up in there. Then, of course, it's soon going to be removed from, you know, digital records, which is the ultimate goal anyway. But yeah, so I mean, it is technically possible to track, but again, you might need some knowledge of the legal system to understand some of the entries that a clerk is going to be making into a case like that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chris. All right, well, we're winding down our time. I want to thank you all for the great information that you've shared with our community. I hope those that have participated have been inspired to learn more about our collaborative, all of the work that's taking place, and how you can get involved. Community advocate, provide social services, or a possible volunteer or pro bono volunteer. There are many organizations that will be glad to have your help in this effort. I think one of the things that have shown is that we're trying to use all of our resources in order to make sure that we are providing maximum information and maximum assistance. So all of our networks, both, as said, old school, new school media, we're trying to reach you any way that you could be reached. So whether it is one-on-one virtually or in a big setting, there is a location in which we are providing across the state expungement services, and particularly for this cannabis expungement initiative. So again, thank you so much. I hope this has been inspiring. I hope this has really put a fire in you all to participate. Get in touch with one of our organizations in order to see how you too can get involved and help change some of the systemic discrepancies that have taken place over decades, over hundreds of years, as well as take advantage of the positive ways in which the law has chosen to try to find a bit of equity in at least one corner so far on these issues. After this, we will send you a survey so that you can give us feedback on this event. Hopefully let us know if you want more information. We'd be glad to provide it and let you know what activities and events we have coming up. So I thank you again for your participation. And again, I want to thank our panelists for sharing your information, sharing your expertise, and for the work that you're doing for the state of Maryland. Thank you.